Imagine standing alone in an empty, silent hospital supply room at 3 in the morning. You turn toward the hallway door, expecting a coworker. Instead, there's a tall man dressed in black, standing motionless behind the glass. He's staring right at you, and his smile is far too wide. That was the reality for Emily Carter. She was 27, practical, and highly skeptical of anything she couldn't prove with a chart. In 2018, as a newly hired nurse in an Ohio hospital, she worked the memory care ward, a place governed strictly by medicine and routine. But hospitals shift character after midnight. The daytime rush is replaced by the faint hum of fluorescent lights, distant monitor beeps, and long, empty corridors. Down in the geriatric wing, the patients who are finally supposed to be asleep often stay awake, whispering to people no one else can see. Working the graveyard shift strips away the noise and the crowds, leaving you alone with whatever those elderly patients are actually talking to. In the isolation of the third floor, phenomena that daytime medical staff ignore start to become impossible to overlook. Emily's wing was dedicated to patients with severe dementia and Alzheimer's. Nighttime in these wards frequently brings sundowning, where confusion and agitation peak after dark. Patients often wander the halls or hold conversations with empty chairs, which is exactly how Emily viewed the case of Lena Whitmore. Every single night around midnight, the 86-year-old would ring her bell in tears. She kept pointing to the darkest corner near her bathroom door, terrified of someone she called the man in black. Emily did what any rationally trained nurse would do. She checked the empty corner, reassured Lena no one was there, and made a note. Even when Lena described the figure in vivid detail, a tall man in dark clothes with an unnatural, fixed smile, Emily attributed it to a recurring hallucination. That clinical mindset acts as a shield. By filtering every strange event through a medical diagnosis, healthcare workers keep themselves grounded. But that logic creates a vulnerability. It leaves you unprepared when a symptom breaks out of a patient's mind and steps into the room. At 2:47 a.m., that clinical shield collapsed. Emily went into the supply room alone to grab medication gloves. The hallway outside was silent, but as she searched the shelves, a heavy knocking began to echo from inside the walls of the small, windowless room. Before she could even locate the source of the sound, someone grabbed her. A firm, freezing cold hand clamped down hard onto her shoulder. Emily spun around instantly, her heart hammering, expecting to see a doctor or a fellow nurse. The room was empty. She backed away from the empty space, and that's when she looked toward the hallway door. Standing on the other side of the glass was the tall, pale man in black. He was staring right at her without blinking, his mouth stretched into a massive grin. Emily bolted out the door to confront the intruder, but the corridor was vacant. No footsteps, no doors closing, silence. At that moment, Emily lost the safety of her skepticism. A dementia patient's hallucination cannot reach out and grab a nurse's shoulder. Whatever Lena was seeing in her room had manifested as a direct physical threat. Panicked, Emily rushed back to room 312. Lena was already sitting up in bed, wide awake. Before Emily could even speak, Lena looked toward the doorway and whispered, "You saw him." She then described the man Emily had just encountered, the height, the clothes, and the smile, with perfect accuracy. Refusing to accept a supernatural explanation, Emily treated it like a security breach. She grabbed the night supervisor, and at 3:10 a.m., they systematically scrubbed through the digital camera feeds from the third-floor hallway to locate the trespasser. The hallway cameras showed an entirely empty corridor outside the supply room. But when the supervisor paused the footage, Emily leaned in close to the monitor. For one frame, trapped in the reflection of the glass door, was the pale, smiling face of the man. He had been standing directly behind her inside the room. While a tired mind can play tricks, a digital recording is indifferent.
The security footage eliminated the possibility of a shared delusion. The entity was now a documented part of the night's events, caught on camera in a space where Emily was supposed to be alone. Emily hurried back to Lena and asked who the man was. Lena explained that he doesn't just wander the halls, he has a purpose. She claimed he waits near the rooms, he smiles, and then someone disappears. He arrives only when someone is about to die. Precisely at 3:33 a.m., the lights on the floor began to flicker. Every heart monitor in the memory care unit began beeping simultaneously.
And then an elderly patient down the hall in room 309 unexpectedly flatlined in his sleep. As doctors and nurses flooded the corridor to rush into 309, Emily stayed frozen. Down at the far end of the hallway, near the emergency exit, was the man. He was motionless, watching the chaos and smiling. Then he raised one long arm, pointed directly at Emily, and vanished as the lights dimmed. In that moment, Lena's warning moved from a patient's fear into a grim reality. The entity's presence was no longer a random haunting. It was now tied directly to the loss of life in room 309. Emily retreated to Lena's room, but the bed was empty. The heart monitor beeped normally, and the window was locked from the inside. Finally, a weak voice broke the silence. Emily turned to find Lena pressed into the far corner of the room, her eyes locked on the ceiling. "Don't let him smile at you," Lena whispered. Emily slowly followed Lena's gaze upward. As the overhead light flickered, she saw him. The man in black was clinging to the ceiling above them. His body was bent at unnatural angles, hanging upside down with his pale face tilted directly toward Emily, wearing that same impossibly wide grin. Emily let out a piercing scream just as the room plunged into total darkness. When the backup lights hummed back to life seconds later, the ceiling was empty, but below it, Lena had collapsed onto the floor. The figure on the ceiling ignored the laws of the physical world. By invading the private space of the room and clinging to the rafters, it demonstrated that no physical barrier could keep it out. When this entity targets a victim, it ignores the constraints of the building itself. Lena Whitmore died later that morning. Before she passed, she grabbed Emily's hand one last time to deliver a final warning. She told Emily that the man doesn't stay in the hospital. She whispered that he follows anyone who sees him. 3 days later, Emily handed in her resignation. She abandoned her career in memory care and made a hard rule for the rest of her life. She would never work another night shift. But changing her schedule didn't end the experience. Years later, Emily admitted she still struggles with a crippling fear of dark surfaces. Whenever she walks past a window at night, she checks the reflection first. Every now and then, for a fraction of a second, she catches a glimpse of a tall, smiling man standing right behind her. Surviving a direct encounter with this harbinger did not mean escaping it. The visual haunting became a permanent part of Emily's life. Once you have seen him, he knows you can see him,